Hello, my name is Miles Yu. I'm the director of the China Center at the Hudson Institute here in Washington, D.C. Today, we're going to discuss perhaps the most consequential political election in the Asia-Pacific region in 2024, and that is the just completed Taiwan presidential and legislative elections. Join me today are two of the most authoritative experts, fresh out of the exhilarating Taiwan presidential campaign. Vincent Chao here is a spokesperson for President-elect William Lai and head of the international affairs for the incumbent and winning Democratic Progressive Party. Vincent, welcome.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you for having us.
Okay. Alexander Huang is a special advisor to the chairman of the KMT party, which is the main opposition party in Taiwan. And he's also the director of international affairs for KMT. Welcome, Alex.
Miles, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, I really consider both of you not only the friends of the United States, but also personal friends for a long time. So it's a great pleasure for me to have you both on this program. Let's just jump into this. First of all, congratulations to both of you for such a stellar performance representing your respective party. But more importantly, congratulations to Taiwan and Taiwanese people for demonstrating to the world, particularly to China, what a free, transparent, and fair democracy is really all about. An election, of course, is a race, a competition. Like all races and competitions, there must be a winner and some loser. Congratulations to Vincent and to your DPP party for winning the race, fair and square. And also congratulations to Alex for the grace and siren call for national unity with which your candidate, Mr. Hou Youyi, conceded and accepted the election results. So my first question to both of you is this. From your perspective, as someone so deeply involved in the campaign, what went right and what went wrong? Vincent, why don't you go first?
Well, let me start with the most pressing issue we face kind of in the post-election period, which is how do we build national unity around the election results? How do we build national unity around quite a fragmented election campaign? And how do we build support and excitement amongst the young people for our future? So I think these are very much the issues that are being discussed right now here in Taiwan. And Lai Ching-te, in his victory speech on the 13th, I think had laid out quite a clear plan for building national unity, whether in terms of building, having government personnel come in from different political parties, as long as they're talented and willing to serve their country. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and certainly that would be encouraged in coming months. But also further that would be to have robust discussions with the opposition on how to find a viable path forward, because there are a number of issues that were raised by the opposition during the course of this election campaign that are particularly relevant for the people of Taiwan, but also particularly for young people. High housing prices, stagnating salaries, income levels not being able to keep up with inflation. I mean, these are issues faced by many developed and advanced economies around the world, and certainly Taiwan is no exception. So there needs to be a robust process of dialogue with the KMT, with the TPP, and other political parties on how to find a unified way forward on these issues. Now, that is in terms of the challenges we faced throughout and after the campaign. What went right? Now, I will say that I think there were, the people of Taiwan gave the DPP, I think, quite high marks for the way it has conducted foreign affairs. It has conducted the defense. It has engaged in a principled stance on many different cross-strait issues. And I think that was something that we had continued to accentuate throughout the campaign, and certainly the people of Taiwan, commended the DPP for. I think what people realized, particularly in the last stages of the campaign, was that there are stark differences between how the DPP and the KMT approached cross-strait narratives, and the choice between the two was very clear. Former President Ma Ying-jeou's remarks to DW, I think, reinforced that perception, that the KMT has become too close to the CCP. The KMT has not been willing to face up to the many challenges that are posed to Taiwan's democracy from the CCP. And for example, this comment that we should absolutely trust Xi Jinping. I think that resonated with many people in the wrong way. And so as a result, I think that throughout the election campaign, we reinforced support for the DPP's diplomatic, defense, and cross-strait position. And it was a position that on many occasions was copied by the TPP, with Ko-Wen-je coming out and saying that, we will follow a Taiwan framework. So with all of that being said, what you will see is a very consistent roadmap ahead on each of these issues. We will continue to remain a very stable, pragmatic cross-strait policy that is based on the status quo, the ROC constitutional framework. We will continue to engage in robust defense deterrence, and we will continue to forge partnerships with countries like the United States, Japan, and other like-minded partners around the world. So you'll see a lot of consistency on that issue, aided and supported by the election results.
Thank you, Vincent. Alex, you heard that I believe Vincent just cast an olive branch to people across the party lines. No matter which party you are affiliated with, as long as you're talented, I think the new administration probably may have a consideration for you. Now, what about Alex? What's your take on what Vincent just said about the point that the KMT actually is perceived as much closer to the CCP, and that basically cost the KMT quite a bit of votes? What do you think about that?
Well, I don't want to go back to history, but I would only say that the KMT headquarters or the entire crew under the leadership of Chairman Eric Chu have been very different from the old image of KMT. What went wrong was that we were not even, like myself, worked for more than 800 days, confront the challenge how to deal with the image that have been deep-rooted not only in the young generation's mindset, but also international interlocutors. Which is that that KMT is able to maintain the communication line with China, but being labeled to pro-China party or vote for KMT is a vote for CCP. That kind of narrative is very hard. I work tirelessly to inform people that KMT nominate many more young candidates to get into the race since 2 years ago in the local elections, and this time, that those are unprecedented reform that in the past 2 years. Another thing is that the most of the people believe that Taiwan is now being forced to choose sides, and no communications is okay across the Taiwan Strait. I think this brings the challenge into the future, and we had, Vincent and I had several occasions that we debated on this issue. The biggest thing in terms of campaign strategy, even though I'm not a master in domestic politics or political campaign, I must say that the KMT started okay by focusing the attention on the clean government, good governance, and mostly energy security and mostly domestic issues. But DPP was very smart to turn the race in the very last 10 days and into a national security or the cross-strait issue. Strategy-wise, I think DPP is proof it again that the party is very good at campaign strategies and tactics. In the future, looking into the future, I think both DPP and KMT needs to find out, after the election, what kind of cooperation, if not compromise, that can be reached. Because after all, the next 4 years will be terribly challenging for Taiwan, and we have only one Taiwan, and we have to face on it. On the national security, I think we do not have too much quarrel. The Taiwan is squeezed diplomatically, and we need to buy time to build up our deterrence capability. I think KMT has many national security talents that can provide good advice, depending on whether DPP will take on it, include them in their future policy. Lastly, I want to say not only to Vincent but to my friends in DPP that national security expertise is not enough in the Green camp. We have to face that shortage, and please do think hard how to run this country with your executive power and protect and defend Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both, for this very, very eloquent and thoughtful comments. Just to echo back what both of you have said, it does seem to me, though, that the KMT throughout this campaign seems to have distanced itself from the image of a pro-China, pro-unification party, openly stated that it no longer, for example, endorsed the one country, two systems formula. And Alex, you mentioned Mr. Ho's sort of a denunciation of former President Ma Ying-jeou's statement on Taiwan, on trusting Xi Jinping on the issue of unification. So the question for you, Alex, then is really this. Has the KMT deviated away from its traditional platform on unification? Or let me put this in a different way. Does the KMT still consider itself a Chinese political party, or it considers itself now a Taiwanese political party whose constituency is in Taiwan but not in China?
I think I would frame it as saying that KMT was born in Hawaii 129 years ago. With the inception and the establishment of KMT, the original goal was to change the whole of China and bring about a republic to the entire China. And now the current party headquarters and I think the consensus in the KMT among leadership is this: that while not giving up the original thought of when the party was created, and do not give up the goal of changing China, even it is remote, that we know clearly, no doubt, that to achieve that goal, we have a precondition. The precondition is to defend Taiwan's democracy, protect our homeland, and campaign and try to win the election locally as Taiwanese. That has no doubt in our mind.
Okay, that's I could push it further, but I think I know what the answer might be. Let me just switch the gear a little bit and get back to both of you. Unlike all previous presidential elections since 1996, this time Taiwan no longer has a KMT-DPP two-party dichotomy, it seems to me, because prominent on the stage is a third party, the TPP, the Taiwan People's Party, which was formed rather quickly, but with great vigor and momentum. I think this probably took both of your established parties, like the one you represent, by surprise. The TPP candidate didn't win, obviously, and as a matter of fact, he was a distant third. But it has indeed gained an impressive representation in the Taiwanese legislature, the Li Fa Yuan. And in certain sense, it has catapulted itself into the enviable position of a deal maker or a deal breaker, because none of the main parties really enjoys the right to decree with the majority seats in the parliament. So how do you explain the meteoric rise of the TPP, and what does it say to your party's conventional platform, and how do you deal with the new challenges presented by the TPP? Vincent, why don't you go first?
I think what's undeniable at this point is that the DPP has been in power for 8 years, and it's been seen as many people, particularly young people, as part of the establishment. And that is coupled with a simple sense that there are a myriad of different issues here in Taiwan that needs to be addressed with some urgency. And I had mentioned, for example, in the last phase about housing prices, salaries, job growth, and many of these social issues, even traffic problems that plague, I think, everyday life here in Taiwan, that people do have a lot of emotions towards. And as a result, I will say the TPP has been quite successful and effective on capitalizing on some of that discontentment towards the establishment and towards the different political parties. I think this brings both challenge and opportunity. The challenge going forward is, of course, we have a very short time to resolve these issues, because we do have, I mean, this is a democracy, one election after another. So there's going to be another election in 2 years' time in terms of local governments. And if we're unable to do well on managing many of these challenges, then this will be further reflected in the local government races. And as a result, we have a very, very short time period. I would almost say at this point that there is no honeymoon for Lai Ching-te. Lai Ching-te is seen as more or less part of an incumbent administration. And so people aren't going to give him the benefit of a doubt for the first few months or a year he's in office. They're going to expect action right away. And simply put, that was also the election message that we had given out, which is that he is an experienced and steady pair of hands. I mean, he has the know-how to resolve these many issues faced. So we are going to face quite a sprint in the initial phases to be able to show action on housing, to show action on salary growth, to show action on resolving these many social and demographic challenges that we face. So that's basically the challenge. But the opportunity is that if we do well, it shows that more or less we have some other issues that are pretty settled, in a sense, that we have a settled idea of what is the right way to deal with our diplomatic space, to deal with the 92 consensus, to deal with China. So for example, we had mentioned, you know, the KMT and the DPP's positional differences. But the fact of the matter is that the KMT had many differences with the TPP as well. The TPP never accepted the 92 consensus throughout the campaign. I mean, they were very wishy-washy on this issue, but nevertheless never came out to say this is something they supported. You know, they were very clear that they supported President Tsai Ing-wen's roadmap when it came to foreign affairs. They were very clear when it came to issues of defense deterrence. So on all of these issues, you can see the majority of the Taiwanese public opinion has sided firmly in the direction that the DPP has trended towards in the past few years. So I guess the opportunity would be, again, to maintain these foundational issues that resonated with the Taiwanese people, but make progress on the challenges. And hopefully that brings us back to a position that we were in 4 or 8 years ago. Now, the last thing I wanted to say on this issue is that the TPP is going to face challenges. It's not going to be smooth sailing from now on. They have control over the legislature in a sense, yes, but how they can actually effectively utilize that as a tool for good governance, for working across the party aisle, for resolving these difficulties and challenges is going to be a question. Are they going to be obstructionism, or are they going to be constructive? I mean, that I think is the question that the Taiwanese people have. And the fact of the matter is that in Taiwan's democratic history, small parties have always had a difficulty of breaking past a personality driven kind of leadership style. So the People's First Party never broke past this idea of Song Chu-yu. You know, after Song Chu-yu kind of dampened his effect in politics, you know, the PFP in a sense also disappeared. You know, previously the New Power Party, I think, was left in a difficult position after Huang Guochang and some very, you know, big personalities left. In terms of the Taiwan State Building Party, Chen Bo-yu left, and that created problems as well. And so on and on and on. These examples show that these parties have a difficult time being institutionalized past the personality phase. And so if they want to become a real lasting political party, they're going to have to break past just a personality association with Kowenze. And I think at this point, that's also going to be a challenge for the TPP.
Yeah, that's a very cogent observation. Now, one thing though, I think Vincent, you discussed that the primary reason for the sort of growth of the TPP, it seems to me, is the economic issues, housing, and wages, and economic development. That's certainly true. Definitely, there is a factor of a charismatic leadership there, as you just pointed out correctly. Is there any other reasons? For example, the fact that the TPP is overwhelmingly young people, and is there any possibility that somehow the young people do not really want to take the China factor into consideration? They just don't want to talk about the either unification or independence. Unification is a little bit too submissive, and independence probably is going to be too risky. So they just say, we're going to, for the status quo, we don't want to deal with this issue. So Alex, I want to hear what you think, what your thoughts are about this. How do you explain the rise of the TPP as a potent political force in Taiwanese politics?
Well, I think, I'm still a full-time college professor, and I have a regular, input from all the youngsters and first-time voters. I think there is a pretty traditional, anti-establishment sentiment among young generation that they are not satisfied with the social economic environment that they are facing. And most of the young people that I have get in touch with are not satisfied with what they have and what they can expect. As Vincent had just mentioned, there are many reasons. I think we need to address those issues. On the national security or identity issue, I think I don't really question about the young generation with any identity conflict. I mean, everybody is Taiwanese. Nobody will debate over that. But there are frustrations about that Taiwan cannot be recognized in the international community on one hand, and also constant and increasing mainland China pressure on Taiwan economically and militarily. And they felt kind of hopeless, that they don't want to pay a high price to fight against it, or they do not have they were too young, and they cannot change policy or have a strong impact on policy, or they even don't know what kind of policy is right for Taiwan. So most of them are kind of emotional or sentimental, and I discussed about the next challenges in the next 4 years, but they said first-time voter is very important, so they will, no matter what challenge on national security, they will put their first ballot to the value or what they believe. And others would say that they will just vote whatever they want, and discounting other campaign slogans or policy positions what they had no impact on. So I think it's the rise of TPP is a alarm for both DPP and KMT in the established political party. And if we are not doing enough or doing good enough, we will continue to nurture the third party, that continue to come up. I agree with Vincent that that personality phase will probably last for another 4 years in TPP, and both DPP and KMT can survive by changing to another leader, but not TPP. And lastly, I want to say that former Taipei Mayor Ko and the TPP chairman needs to spend time to think that how he can maintain the chairman's relations with the future TPP party caucus in the legislative yuan. Any mismatch of that bilateral relationship would cost the party a lot. Thank you.
Well, those are very, very excellent observations from both of you. The Taiwan election has gained world attention, and it's really, really amazing to watch how this whole drama evolved, unfold, and peacefully and with great satisfaction. Not only your election contributed to the world, some of very tidy three-letter acronyms, TPP, KMT, and DPP, all the things, I think people get an education about the intricate situation of Taiwan. But most importantly, the next question is for you, Vincent. This kind of, since your party won the election and will be in charge of foreign and domestic policies of Taiwan, this election obviously has caused the global fanfare and about Taiwanese democracy. Nowhere is more intensely interested in Taiwan's election than in mainland China, where millions of people are watching quietly, admiring you, and watching the process with great interest, hoping that the Taiwan model will inspire China's democratic future. But there has been some criticism about Taiwanese government's lack of interest in actively promoting freedom and democracy in China, either for fear of the CCP retribution, or more likely because many Taiwanese do not think China's political democratization is any of their business. Leaving China alone, China will leave Taiwan alone. That's basically pretty much some of the thinking. I'm not sure whether that's what the Taiwanese government is thinking about or not, but there has been some kind of criticism. Vincent, is this a fair criticism? If so, will the new Lai Ching-te Xiao Meiqin presidency be more proactive in supporting China's freedom cause and democratization?
It's a great question, Miles, and it's admittedly something that has not been talked about in detail throughout the course of the campaign. Now, personally, I've always believed that a free and democratic China is absolutely essential to sustainable peace and stability here in the region. And if the Chinese people were able to make their own decisions about their own leadership, we will certainly see a very different globally facing China than we do today. And it's unfortunate about the current situation. And again, I think we remain continuously hopeful for the future. Now, with all of that being said, I think the best example for the people of China is the survival of Taiwan's democracy. The very survival of Taiwan's democracy, the fact that we have institutions that allow us to have confidence and trust in our democratic institutions, to have confidence and trust that the people's voice is being heard and respected. I think that itself, it's the best inspiration we can give the people of China. And I have to say this again and again. I mean, Taiwan in many senses is an example of everything the CCP is not. We are an example of a free and democratic Chinese-speaking society. We have showed that ethnically Chinese people are not incompatible with the ideals of democracy and freedom and universal values, and that we can take pride in our institutions. And so this was, I think, at the heart, even if not discussed explicitly, of everything we do here in Taiwan throughout this election campaign, which is show the world the resilience of Taiwan, despite disinformation, despite economic coercion, despite United Front tactics. All of these actions were unable to ultimately influence the Taiwanese vote in a way that degraded our institutions. So to your question specifically about what to do about China, I think what is important for Taiwan going forward, my personal view, is that we must work with international friends and partners to ensure that Taiwan's message of hope and democracy is brought into China effectively. There are a number of U.S. organizations, whether including RFA, including VOA, including other press organizations, that are able to beam content into China in simplified Chinese effectively. And we need to ensure that Taiwan's story is shared through this context, and that the Chinese people within China itself understand that Taiwan presents a viable way forward without bloodshed and with full respect for human rights and democracy. So I do think that there will be opportunities to work in this field in coming years.
That's a very, very good point. I think not only Taiwan is the inspiration for people who speak Chinese worldwide, but also for even oldest democracy in America, my home country here in the United States. We have much to learn from Taiwanese. For example, why do we have to vote on Tuesdays? Tuesdays is a working day, right? Taiwanese election regulations say vote on Saturdays. Everybody can participate. We should have learned from you. And also, we must have, like Taiwanese election, in-person voting and with voter ID. And that basically can guarantee, credibility of the election processes. And I also think that there's a lot of things that we could learn from your democratic processes. One more thing is basically, you ban publication of any polling results 10 days before the voting day. That was very good. In the United States, every press, before you even read a word, where they're supporting, who they're supporting, and who they're working against. So that's not good for democracy. And I think this is basically democracy must have a vibrant press. But I think Taiwanese democracy is really not only a good example for people who are still living in tyranny, but also for people who like the United States, for Americans who have been there for a long while. So Alex, both of you are the foreign affairs, foreign policy czars of your representative party. You know a lot more about Taiwanese politics and your country's role in the world. Now you have more than 50 countries, leaders from 50 democracies. Congratulate your election. Congratulate your completion of the democratic processes. That's a lot of people, including United States, Germany, UK, Canada, Australia, the Philippines, you name it, right? So that is incredible assets Taiwanese has. And what's so important about democracy, the voting is, election is the only source of political legitimacy of the government. You have it, China doesn't have it. Political legitimacy is the primary criteria for diplomatic recognition of a sovereign and independent country. So with this dramatic victory, and this is really, really amazing practice of democracy in your country, Vincent, I know you're going to be very important. You play a very important role in the future government in foreign affairs. Do you have any plan to work toward that objective? That is to gain much wider international recognition diplomatically. Again, Alex, same issue to you too. I mean, you have interacted with so many governments on the diplomatic front. So I want to hear from you. What do you think about this aspect of that? So you right now, China obviously tried to grab away whatever you have, the countries that recognize you, but there's a far more international sympathy and shared sort of like-minded countries in the world. Alex, why don't you go first, and then we'll ask Vincent to conclude today's session.
I think official diplomatic relationship that Taiwan has is now down to 12. Let's stop blaming games and face the reality that Taiwan needs to find other approaches. My recommendation is that, number one, we need to shift from the oral or support to substantial cooperation. We appreciate all the congratulation letters for Taiwan democracy. We appreciate a lot for the resolution that been passed by the parliaments and Congress so many times. But we want to be able to, in the future, that translate that into more concrete and substantial cooperation, item by item, issue by issue. I think that's the one. The second is that I try to advise the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because I was former Foreign Service officer. I think Vincent was as well. I think we need to do more with the Indo-Pacific region. We have put most resources and the best talent to deal with the great powers. But as we look at the movement of Taiwan investors from mainland China to Southeast Asia, as we see that the supply chain have been shifting out of China, and we think that a good neighboring policy and more focus, putting more resources and talented people to the Indo-Pacific region is our survival must, and also that we can contribute to a larger and wider Indo-Pacific strategy that the United States is initiated. That would be my advice.
Okay, Vincent, before you make your remarks, I like to point out that just follow what Alex said. You both mentioned about the sense of survival. Absolutely true. The Chinese Communist government tried to squeeze you and to basically, to minimize your international space for this existence, even activities. But do not be fooled about this. The Chinese Communist government also, if you notice, they have maintained relatively quiet about this election, relatively speaking. That's because they really, really are afraid of the contagion of democracy spread to its own people in China. And so you have also had this most powerful weapon that you can inspire Chinese people. That's what the Chinese Communist Party fear about most. So it is in that aspect. I think survival obviously is important, but I also think that do not sell yourself short because you have a lot of strength that other people don't have. Vincent, why don't you make your concluding remarks because of time is it's up pretty soon.
Well, thank you, Miles. Well, just the first point of slight clarification. So, you had mentioned that whether I would take up a position. My plan, and I'm very happy to announce I will be going back to Taipei City Council soon. I'm a member of the Taipei City Council. I'll still be a member for the next 3 years, and I'm firmly committed to carrying out my term there. And so I was happy to, as Alex was, I'm sure, to help as a volunteer in the course of the campaign and to ensure that our international policies are heard and that we have good plans going forward. But certainly, I'm sure for both Alex and I, this is a passion project and not necessarily, something that we're in for the long haul on. So that kind of aside first. What was interesting was the break of Nauru yesterday. So I was subsequently on a number of television shows, and this was not even on the agenda. Like this was kept in the very, very end, right before commercials, saying, "Oh, by the way, Nauru broke relations with us." My point being is that not that it's unimportant, but that the Taiwanese people are showing less and less interest on these issues, for good or for bad. And that reflects to a certain degree that the Chinese are having less and less leverage through political actions or diplomatic actions that they take against Taiwan. I was there when the first diplomatic ally broke in 2016, when Panama had broke. That was a big setback to the people of Taiwan. But after 10, after 9, I mean, it's not as big as it was. And so that, in a sense, represents that the PRC also needs to think about, new and creative ways to express their displeasure, because evidently the Taiwanese people have proven to be more and more resilient as time goes by, and we are able to, I think, have our society come together despite the many different setbacks we face, whether in terms of international space or the economic coercion or united front tactics and so forth. So that all of that being said, Miles, you had mentioned earlier about the importance of democracies supporting Taiwan, and that is where the focus will be in coming years. The focus will be on to build very much robust relations with democracies that are importantly increase deterrence, that show the PRC that actions will have consequences, international, economic, or otherwise, but also to show the people of Taiwan and to improve the morale here, that the people of Taiwan do not stand alone amidst the many challenges faced. And so you can fully expect that in coming years, the Lai administration will be focused on how to build stronger economic, diplomatic, people-to-people, cultural, educational ties with the United States in particular, but also Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, with also Japan and Southeast Asia, and many other countries that would be important to Taiwan's resilience. So maybe I'll conclude by saying that, which is for Taiwan, people, the international community should expect and can expect a pair of steady hands in the years ahead. and that Lai has made clear, not only through the campaign, but also in his victory speech, that there will be a broad continuation of many of the diplomatic, security, as well as the economic and trade components that we've seen over the past years, particularly in terms of maintaining the cross-strait status quo, increasing our relations with the US, Japan, and other like-minded countries, but also to ensure that we have robust defense deterrence to the degree that the PRC is unable to assume the high risk of engaging any military action across Taiwan, and that war remains an unthinkable option for all parties involved. And so we will aim to continue that, despite, myself not planning to be part of that, but nevertheless, these are commitments that we've made throughout the campaign, and we fully intend to keep.
Well, that's a very eloquent conclusion, but I must say this, Vincent and Alex, no matter what kind of party platforms differences might be in Taiwan, I've observed Taiwanese election for many years. As a matter of fact, I was one of the few election observers in the 2020 Taiwan election. It was very, very dramatic then. But all these Taiwanese elections have done to Taiwanese people is gradually on major issues of vital importance to people in Taiwan, and also to the regional and the global set, have become narrower and narrower and smaller. I've seen in this election, 3 parties all agree the future of Taiwan will not be negotiated away in the back room with China. The future of Taiwan will be determined by the voters of Taiwan. That is a very, very amazing convergence of a point of view. So not only that, the Taiwan's democracy, the safety security of Taiwan is not just about Taiwanese people. It's also global security as well. More and more countries are realizing, particularly the countries around China's periphery, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, India, Philippines, of course, United States, and most of the countries in the NATO alliance realize Taiwan is not just an isolated target of China. Taiwan is the beginning of the chain of aggression for mainland China. If Taiwan is taken by the Chinese Communist Party, and who's going to fall next? Maybe Senkaku Island, and which will trigger a war among the 3 biggest economies of the world, the United States, Japan, and China, and maybe Vietnam, maybe India, maybe Philippines. China has a problem with all of them. So that's why defense of Taiwan is not only important for the Taiwanese people, for the region, for global peace. So I thank both of you for today's participation, and I really, really particularly thank you for your amazing performance during the election and beyond. I consider both of you my personal friends and friends of the United States and freedom of friends of democracy. And so Vincent Chao and Alexander Huang, thank you very much, and see you soon.